There was almost nothing that Cedric Morris was unable to take on. He could grapple with almost any subject. And I'm about to show you a landscape, which I think he does that fantastically well with. You remember how yesterday I asked you whether or not you could identify where this picture was painted? Well, the answer is Tenerife in Gran Canaria, and the successful recognizer of this is coming up on the screen now. Cedric Morris was an inveterate traveller. He loved it. He would collect plants on these trips. He would also paint. And in 1957, he went to Gran Canaria in order to try and find some inspiration. He found it really difficult because then, as now, it was full of tourists. But finally, in a place of self-isolation almost, he discovered this exquisite, soft, gentle, poetic pink church in the middle of a landscape. Now, the wonderful thing about Cedric is the sort of sophisticated simplicity with which he could take on almost any subject matter. And the reason he could do it was because of the lessons, the techniques, the tricks that he'd learnt in Paris. And one of them was texture. And in order to see that, you need to come in this bottom right-hand corner. Now look at the way that he's done the rocks, these great boulders that are being washed by the sea. He's used the end of the brush, and he's almost lanced the canvas with a loaded hoghair, I reckon, loaded hoghair brush. Now compare those areas with the areas above, or specifically this grey road. And you notice how the strokes are radically different. They are a sweep. Now, what I think we're seeing here is the influence of Cubism, and in particular, the idea of collage, which artists like Braque and Juan Gris, who Cedric would have known in Paris, would have seen working and would have been highly influenced by. And it's the idea of almost having one material of some kind next to another material, creating a sort of pixelated surface pattern, something for the eye to play with because of the other tricks that are involved with Cubism. Have a look at the church as well. And then this is the tour de force example of what he could do, or the liberties, perhaps I should say, that he could take. Because if you look at that church, you realise that from a perspective point of view, it doesn't quite work. You see more of the right-hand side than you do of the centre, or rather you see too much of the right-hand side rather than the flank that's facing us as we're out to sea. It's almost as if he's unfolded a piece of origami and created a sort of curious pattern. Now that's what Cubism did. It offered you more than one view of an object for the price of one. So perhaps you could get 2 or 3 different perspectives. And this is what's so interesting, really, because from the late 14th, early 15th century, as a result of the discovery of linear perspective by Brunelleschi and a few others, artists could show the world in an arithmetic and brilliantly vivid way. But by the time of the late 19th, early 20th century, with the French modernist movement and people like Cedric, they got bored of it. They saw the opportunity to be able to say more by throwing it away, by using other ideas and techniques to see objects. So rather than just showing you this church from one view, you've got it from pretty well 2. And it's not just texture that makes this painting so delightful. It's colour. And Cedric, and it's connected to his love of flowers and his work as a plantsman, was an intuitive colourist. He knew what you could get away with. I mean, look at the way the mist is done up here and those subtle greens and blues. One of the games you can play with a Cedric Morris is look at the different greens. In fact, if you make your way down, you can see the way the trees are down here. Then there's a slightly lighter green just above the parapet. And then if you throw the camera to the right, you can see here another green again, and a darker one. I can count probably 8, 9, 10 different hues of green. Now, pink is a rare and unusual colour in many ways. That if you look at the colour chart, there are certain colours when they're put next to each other, they're natural opposites, or they're friends if you want, set each other off. They fire each other, they get each other going, they mob each other, they threaten each other, and they befriend each other. And the pink of this beautiful solitary church set against the green is exactly that. Those are two complementary colours. And the resultant effect, when you pull out from this picture, is something that is intensely pleasing to the eye. There are no figures. He's escaped the tourists. He's found something to paint. But by using his armoury of cubism in relation to perspective, of colour and of texture, he's added meaning and purpose and poetry to what was before his eyes. Tomorrow I'll be returning with a little bit more Cedric Morris, but I want to leave you with a teaser, and that is this. I'm going to cover the bottom so you can't see the signature. It has a strong link to Cedric Morris, that is the clue, and I want you to tell me who did it. In fact, it's an etching rather than a drawing, but it's by someone quite distinguished who was profoundly connected in ways that I will explain to Cedric Morris. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your wonderful and continuing comments, to your salutes to us in isolation. We salute you back. Thank you. Take care and see you tomorrow.